Across the Fence, we preview an upcoming fair on the ecology, culture, and economics of Lake Champlain. There'll be fun, games, and hands-on learning for all ages celebrating Vermont's Great Lake. Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. The mountains, working landscape, and Lake Champlain make up the state of Vermont. These natural resources are precious and we all need to do our part to make sure future generations can share in what makes Vermont so special. The Waterworks Fair is an annual community event bringing together educators, advocates, municipalities, and businesses to celebrate Lake Champlain. The goal is to get people to engage, interact, and understand the role that the lake plays in the lives of all the people who live near the shore and along its many waterways. Jen Guimaras is the Associate Director of the Community Sailing Center in Burlington and one of the organizers of the festival. And also with us is Lori Fisher. It's Executive Director of the Lake Champlain Committee, and it's one of the participating organizations. I want to thank you both for joining us today. Tell us about the Waterworks Fair.
Sure. So the Waterworks Fair started last year, and now it's in its second year. It's a free community event on the waterfront as part of Lake Champlain Maritime Festival. And as you said, Judy, it brings together municipalities, lake advocates, environmental organizations, and nonprofits to offer opportunities for people to engage with information around the lake, get out on the lake, do some paddling, and learn more about the lake to ideally instill a sense of stewardship in them so that they can care for and protect the lake in the future.
And it's free.
And it's free, and it's great for families and children and adults of all ages. There's something for everyone at the waterfront on July 31st.
And who's in charge of putting this fair together?
It was started by the Community Sailing Center, and a number of partnering organizations like the Lake Champlain Committee joined, provided feedback, and now we have over 15 organizations who will be there on the waterfront with us on Sunday, including the Echo Center, the Lake Champlain Committee, the Lake Champlain Sea Grant, the Water Department, Lake George Association, Lake Champlain Maritime Museum, and the list goes on, but it's bringing people from southern Vermont, across the lake in New York, to come down and celebrate the lake and give people an opportunity to engage with it.
Why do you think that's important to have all these factions come together?
You know, I think it provides a really neat, diverse learning opportunity. So we have people that are recreational organizations or folks working on water quality and stormwater runoff through the water department that can provide, you know, a vision of water quality from a different perspective. So it allows people to see the lake from many different aspects and learn maybe not just the fish that happen in it and the algae that are there, but also how we as humans can have an impact on it.
Laura, maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure, and I think the fair is also just a great way to get people more engaged in these issues. So in terms of our impact, well, humans have actually been in the Lake Champlain watershed for over 11,000 years, but that impact has really increased much more dramatically in the last few hundred years, and certainly in the last 100 years. And you know, one of the things to remember when we're thinking about Lake Champlain water quality is that that lake is fed by over 10 major tributaries, smaller streams and waterways, and a landmass that's over 8,000 square miles. So it's about the size of Massachusetts, all having an influence on water quality. And so some of the issues that we're facing, confronting in Lake Champlain, certainly nutrient loading that triggers algal blooms, but also we're seeing issues with toxic pollutants, particularly these new generation contaminants like pharmaceuticals, microplastics, all having effect on our waterways. And for most of these influences on water quality, there's a strong human component. And so there again, the fair is about sharing that information, sharing our love of the lake, getting a diversity of organizations involved. So really there's something for everybody. And part of our message here is that the lake is a big part of all our lives. And we all have a role and a responsibility in its stewardship, and there are many ways to foster that stewardship.
And I think a lot of people will think, well, gee, I live in a neighborhood nowhere near the lake, but that still has an impact. Again,
yeah, it certainly does, because we have to think about the land being a major influence on that water quality. So again, it's over half the land acreage in Vermont is running off into Lake Champlain. So what you do on the land really informs the health of our waterways and Lake Champlain in particular.
What are some of the pressures on the lake?
So pressures, certainly human population. We're seeing and we see an influence in that in terms of us having paved over a lot of our areas in terms of rooftops, sidewalks, parking lots, roadways. All that contributes in terms of our water quality. So you're having pollutants running off instead of being absorbed by the land. And that includes nutrients like phosphorus and nitrogen. Phosphorus in particular triggering algae
This is what we're seeing
blooms.
here.
Exactly. Some of which, that's on the screen right now can turn toxic. And so there's a great threat there in terms of human health and tremendous impact to our recreational areas and opportunities on the lake. Toxic pollution again, invasive species. We have, over 50 invasives in Lake Champlain that we know about. Again, there's a strong human component to their presence in the lake. And so at the Waterworks Fair, you can get more information about invasive species transport, how you can play an active role in preventing it too.
Let's talk a little bit about the economic impact of recreation like boating and fishing when it comes to Lake Champlain.
Sure. So I think there's a variety of positive and then, of course, concerns with our economic impact. But with people recreating on the lake, you have folks renting sailboats, driving power boats, lakeside restaurants and shoreside cafes. But a number of different businesses need the lake as part of their economic vitality. And then others use it as a way to provide more opportunities for people in and around that area. But there is a pretty good amount of economic impact that we generate in Burlington from the lake, so it's certainly in our best interest to make sure we do our best to take care of it.
It's really billions of dollars a year in that impact, and the economic vitality Lake Champlain provides to this region. So really is an economic engine for the region in addition to enhancing our quality of life, being our drinking water source. Over a third of the Vermont population gets their drinking water from Lake Champlain. So we depended on it in so many different ways, and this is, this Waterworks Fair is also part of coming together to offer opportunities to celebrate the lake, but also give back to it and say, here are some steps you can take, here are some impacts you may not have known about, and these are the ways you can reduce them.
Are there success stories too you've worked over a long time for the Lake Champlain Committee on a variety of different issues that affect the lake. What are some of the success stories of what the work that you've done?
Well, I think there's, been success in getting a handle at some level on some of the nutrient loading with upgrades to wastewater treatment facilities. Also, there are some improvements now, some new, stronger regulations that are going to be promulgated for agriculture, which is a big contributor in terms of nutrient loading. So I think we've had some regulatory reforms and improvements. We've certainly seen some benefits, but we're also playing catch-up on a lot of things. We have aging infrastructure that we have to reinvest in, and I think it's really important for us to recognize as a society that we need to make ongoing investments in our water quality, that this is something that we're so dependent on. It's fundamental to our quality of life, to the recreational and economic opportunities here, and we need it every day, we use it every day, and we need to invest in its health, and that we all need to play a role.
I also think too, Judy, the success stories is the involvement we have with our community. So the fair is a great example. And at the Sailing Center, we participate in the Lake Champlain Committee's Blue-Green Algae Monitoring Program. So it's an opportunity for citizen science where we take 6, 7, 8-year-olds that are in our summer programs getting out on the lake that, test for chlorophyll and phosphorus and contribute to data for the Lake Champlain Committee regarding algal blooms. I also was mentioning the lay monitoring program in there, but also those pieces, those success stories of getting people out there and experiencing the lake for the first time, participating in STEM education with our Burlington School District program, but I think those partnerships where we can work together and then also incorporate early learning opportunities for the next generation, the future stewards of Lake Champlain.
Talk a little bit about getting people out on the lake. That's a really important aspect of what you do, and I think a lot of people will see the lake and say, well, I don't know how to sail, or I don't know how to paddleboard or kayak, but this is really an opportunity to try it.
Yes, and the Community Sailing Center is a public access facility. So it's really open to anyone and everyone, regardless of ability to pay, physical or cognitive ability, pretty much everything. We're open to anyone and everyone. And the best part about getting out on the lake is you can do it through a number of different avenues. It's not really about sailing. It's more about lake access and the lessons you can learn from it and the educational opportunities. And sailing's just our platform. Paddling's our platform that we do all this learning. So if you're in a local school, we do STEM programming that align with next generation science standards, excuse me. If you are a nonprofit organization and you have a number of youth that are supported by youth development experiences, sailing is one of the ways that we can do that together. And in turn, they're also getting out on the lake. Folks from a number of our community partners get down there for the first time, having lived less than a mile from the lake, and finally get out there. Didn't know that the lake was just down the road, and now are out there recreating, learning a new skill, developing communication skill sets and leadership training that really provides them an opportunity to be successful in their daily lives and also establish that personal connection.
Tell me a little bit about the perspective that you gain being out on the lake, looking back at the shoreline versus standing on the shore.
It's really just a wonderful experience to immerse yourself in water, to feel the power of water, to feel a sense of being in this marvelous water body and resource with the mountains surrounding you, the community back. And I think that's a major draw, and there are many ways to do that. And I think the Sailing Center is providing access. The Lake Champlain Committee has a paddler's trail where we try and get people out on the water too, because we believe that that access, that experiential basis, is fundamental to having a connection to this waterway that we're responsible for. And you want to play on it and really see all it has to offer. It's just, it's a very different thing. And I know the Sailing Center, maybe you can talk a bit about those first-time exposures with some of those
It's
students.
remarkable. It's that perspective. You are eliminating those outside pressures. The electronic era we're in, those aren't out on our boats. So people have to engage with one another, take in the sights and sounds of the lake, and also seeing what a city looks like from the water, which is very different than when you're standing on a street corner amidst buildings. Your perspective is very different from when you can go out into the middle of Lake Champlain between two large states, two mountain ranges, and look back and see the size of cities and different cities at that. Really provides people an opportunity to reflect on not only themselves, but also kind of the world around them. And it hopefully gives them an opportunity to learn to love their lake, which is something we're really focused on this year at the Sailing Center, is loving our lake, and our campaign to engage people so that we can support our new waterfront education center right there on the lake. So getting more people that access in the future.
What always surprises me being out on the lake is how big it is and how diverse it is. I mean, different parts are so different.
They really are. I mean, you have areas that are just cloaked in cedar, and then you have wetland areas. You have the river-like section of the South Lake, and then the broad lake with deep water going 400 feet deep. It's an amazingly diverse body of water that has a lot of magic on it too.
So we're talking about the Waterworks Fair. When is that happening again?
It's Sunday, July 31st from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. right in Waterfront Park next to the Echo Center. And then we have paddling at Perkins Pier and paddling at the Sailing Center and water department tours. But the check-in area will be right there in Waterfront Park before you can go off adventuring and experience activities.
And how many people are you expecting, do you think?
Last year we had around 100, so we're hoping to have a couple hundred this year with the addition of free paddling, and there will be a raffle, but we've really diversified the programs participating, so I think it should be a really neat opportunity for people to get out there on the lake.
And once again, it's free.
It is.
All right. Well, I want to thank you both for joining me today. That's our program for today. Thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. I'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.